Hey there, guys. This is Hendrick Tallardar, and welcome to Water Cooler episode number 2. I'm joined by Pandemic Legion's Grath Telkin.
Hi.
So, this episode's going to be primarily focused on Fanfest, and Grath is very opinionated in some of the changes, so I figured he would be a good person to have around. So, before we get started with all that, Grath, what game have you been playing a lot of lately? Since this is what we kind of do with all our guests.
Titanfall, I've probably played the most of besides Eve. And I haven't even had that much Eve to play. Like, to be honest, I've been working like 14-hour days, so...
You've been liking the new Titanfall DLC?
Yeah, 100%. It's a great game.
10 out of 10, would Grath Telkin approve?
Oh, yeah, would tell you to pay for it in a heartbeat. EA would love me. I'd be a great spokesman. I can go on for hours about how awesome that game is and how much flexibility it gives the players.
Alright, so, like I said, this is the FanFest heavy episode. And Grath, since you're a leader of one of the large, I don't know, are you actually technically the official leader of PL these days?
Nope,
or
technically it's Elise. That way I can blame everything on him.
Oh, so I should have had Elise Randolph on this episode.
You should have had Elise Randolph. You, in fact, if you were going to tackle Black Legion Capitals, you should probably contact Elise Randolph before you contact Grath Telkin, because obviously I don't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, that's actually gonna be something brought up in a bit, or... No, that's not. It's not on our list of things to do, but we can always talk about that later. So let's talk about FanFest first. What did you see at FanFest that really caught your eye this year?
The dust for PC, really, mainly. We have
Project
a fairly
Legion.
large... Yeah, we have a fairly large first-person shooter following in PL. So the one thing we've always bitched about is that, it never came out for PC. We would 100% play it. We would not only play it, we would probably consume the game like it was made of crack if they would just put it on PC, and they just never did. Like, it's been sitting languishing on a crap-ass console that was near the end of its life for the past 2 years, and when the EVE community itself probably could have done more to save it than CCP ever could.
Yeah, that is true. And how did you think that CCP handled the announcement? Because there's a lot of backlash over it when they announced Project Legion during the Dust keynote, and a lot of the Dust 514 community freaked out because they're like, well, are you abandoning Dust? Are you not going to let us transfer over? How are we going to be able to transfer over? Why are you abandoning Dust 514 on PS3 when, a year ago you said you would never abandon something if it didn't, you guys said we have a 5-year plan, and now it seems like after a year you're just giving up.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure they had a 5-year plan. Like, they had a 10-year plan for EVE, and I was part of, a decent chunk of that 10-year plan. Like, I got to see it evolve. But generally speaking, when you have a 5-year plan for a game and the game has like fewer subscribers than Conan, then you have a problem.
That is true. And Dust only had about, I think, 4,000 or 5,000 concurrent users on average, and the peak concurrent users were 10,000. And that was around May of last year, right after it first came out.
You can't expect them to keep producing for a game that doesn't have a population. Like, it was great when EVE first came out, right? There was 15, 20 guys that worked for a company, and it was awesome to see them stick with it like that. But now they have, a staff of, a couple hundred people. They have larger concerns to deal with, and expecting them to stick around and waste all their development time on a game that's built around a console that is, if not dead, going to be slowly phased out, because everybody knows how consoles work. They just phase the old system out over a year or two, even if they're like, hey, we'll keep support for it. They don't.
Yeah.
So you can't expect them to keep investing money into a thing it's dead, and it's not their fault that it's dead. It's Sony's fault that it's dead. Which I guess in turn it kind of makes it their fault that it's dead, since they invested all their worth into Sony instead of just putting it out as a PC release and then porting it over. I understand they were trying to do something big, but it just didn't work.
Well, that's one thing I think Project Legion actually has a glimmer of hope for, and I've mentioned it a couple times in different situations where the PlayStation 4 was designed to be concurrently easier to... It was designed to be easier to port a PC game to PS4 over, and a PS4 to PC over, just in how the coding was set up, as compared to a PS3 conversion to a PS4 game or a PS3 conversion to a PC game. So that's why I think at some point, considering that CCP are doing EVE Valkyrie for the PS4 with the Sony Morpheus, it's likely that we'll see Project Legion as what we'll see eventually on PC if it becomes, an actual thing. make its way to the PS4 at some point with a fleshed out port, a lot better than what we see on the PS3. I think the PS3 is just technologically it's too weak of console to have something on. PS4 seems a lot more closer to what CCP need and want to have to support a game like Dust.
And I'm sure that the Dust guys, if they stick around long enough and the game doesn't completely implode after they start working on it, will find that they get ported over into a newer version of Dust for a PS4. It just wouldn't make sense as a business for CCP to just abandon the people that kind of stuck with them. It would have been like them making an Eve 2 after the third year and just ditching all 14,000 people that stuck with them and made it even possible to code Eve 2. You know, like it in the beginning. It's not something that I just feel that they'll move the people over. It's just the easiest way. It keeps their income stream and all that stuff like that, which is what they're mainly concerned about. No big deal. It's a company.
Yeah,
but yeah, the Eve. I was a little disappointed to find out Valkyrie's coming out for the PlayStation 4. Like my computer, pretty much adds eighth legs to any a ninth leg to any cricket that happens to crawl near it. Or, it's like it's so powerful it mutates shit that comes nearby. I don't care about consoles in any way, shape, or form. I don't even care to deal with the people that own consoles because most of those people are under medicated. Like I don't know any other way to put it. I can't stand console people. Like it's actually like playing with generally the same crowd that plays Dota. I just feel that it's my duty at that point to get on and sing as loudly about my testicles as humanly possible for the entire stay on the system. Yeah. So I don't know why they put Valkyrie on there. Like, give it to me on PC. You have a universe that you're building around a game, a PC game. Why can't you just stay on the PC? You have a following. You have customers that will pay for the new stuff that you're putting out that will keep it afloat long enough for you to go out and find new customers for that thing. If you limit it, like for me to continue supporting CCP, I have to go buy a PlayStation 4. I really don't want one. There's nothing that they can do to make me want a PlayStation 4. And that even includes supporting their company. Whereas if they just put the games out on PC, I would give them all of my money. Like, just take my money, please. I mean, you already take my money, so take some more of my money. Have it all.
Well, the Valkyrie game is actually going to be on PC as well as PS4. That's the thing. So Oculus Rift support is going to be on. You're going to need Oculus Rift if you want to play it on the PC.
Yeah, sure. Whether or not I'd go buy one.
Yeah, and like from what I'm seeing, the dev kits are only around like $200 to $300, which I mean is about how much you pay for a PS4 anyway. So it's like, if I have a powerful PC and I upgrade it and I play a lot of games on that, and I can get an Oculus Rift for the same amount, I'm going to drop on a PS4 without the Morpheus because right now there's no Morpheus included in any of the PS4 packs as far as I'm aware. It's like why would I go to the PS4 when I can just play it on my PC? But at least they're giving you an option. I would rather spend
$400 for an Oculus for my computer because I would get 100 times more use out of it. I'm sure I can use it as like a monitor, that's strapped to my freaking face for all of my other games, like without any problem at all. And free up massive. Now my computer can just sit in the corner. It looks like the dunce corner or something. It's just got a little black box in the corner with this thing that I stick on my face. It's got a mouse and keyboard. I like the idea of that way better than giving Sony money for anything, really.
And also added to the Valkyrie news was the addition of Katee Sackhoff from Battlestar Galactica fame, being the vocal talent of the main character Ran Kavik. What'd you think of that announcement? Because that came out of nowhere, really.
I think Katee must be short on work or money. I don't understand. Like that, she seems an awfully big name to be attached to. Like, no offense, like that's a big name to attach to something as obscure as not only Eve but Eve's project game. Yeah,
that's true. But I think CCP, Oculus, and I think in some ways Sony are all hedging their bets that Valkyrie's going to be as good as it is right now. Once it's more fleshed out, and it's probably going to be even bigger. I mean, Oculus has been using Valkyrie as a game for tech demos and stuff at like E3 and stuff. CCP didn't have a booth as far as I remember last year. They just piggybacked off Oculus Rift's booth, and they got a lot of attention for it.
Oh, I'm 100% sure. They probably had money thrown at them. Like, Hilmar was probably butt naked rolling around in a big bed of investor money after people saw it, because the game looks really good. Like,
yeah,
don't get me wrong, I love flight sims and fighter games and stuff like that, like fighter jet games and stuff, and now I'm in space. Not only am I in space, but I'm in space in the stuff that's in Eve. Players in Eve have been asking for as long as I can remember to be able to fly the fighters in carriers. And like, now it's a thing. Like, that's going to sell like crazy. Like, at least to the 10 people that play Eve still or whatever. But yeah, like, it's going to sell. Like, there's no doubt.
Yeah, and what's going to be interesting to see how they try to work out interacting it, because right now they said that they don't have any plan to interact Valkyrie with Eve proper. But I have to imagine at some point they're going to look at how they can interact it, because once that interaction becomes a thing, it's going to be huge. Like,
let's let them get the interaction between Dust or Legion and Eve right before we worry about Valkyrie. Right now, I feel like that the Dust-Eve interaction is pretty much just Eve players roll up into orbit and shoot shit at a planet, and something dies. We don't get to see that something die, but something dies down there, and we get a mail for it or whatever. And that's pretty much the extent of it. I'm not even sure if they can shoot back. That's how uneducated about Dust I am.
In Dust, you can't shoot back at the Eve ships.
Players. See, that's terrible. Yeah, I imagine with Legion they will be able to shoot back. Like, that's more of what I'm talking about. It's probably easier to integrate the system. You give them some kind of thing that just shoots up into space, and like, imagine you pull your nice faction fit Vindicator into orbit around a planet and start hammering on it, and dude pulls out the whatever planetary whammy button and just obliterates your $3 billion spaceship in space. I'm a big fan of that.
And speaking of space, let's talk about the Eve keynote, which had some pretty big changes come up. CCP are changing their expansion focus from 2 expansions a year with a bunch of point releases in between to every 6 weeks, starting with the first one in June called Chronos.
And we already get an example because they pushed all the industry changes. Everybody was excited, including myself, because I used to do invention and building and stuff. And I was finally like, oh my God, look how so much sweeter, and it remembers stuff. And I don't have to click my left finger into non-functioning anymore just to install one job. So that was all really excited, but they already pushed it back to the second one, which is great though, because now we don't have to know that they pushed the industry change back to the 1.1 release that usually hits at the end of August or September.
Or even pushing it back all the way to the winter release,
November,
which would be like December, January of next year or something like that.
Yeah, this is a way better system. Anybody complaining, oh, they're not going to get it, I don't care. You're dumb. You should just shut up and let them do their thing. You'll get more content on a regular basis than you would before, because now, we've been hearing that they're redoing the pirate frigates and the pirate cruisers and stuff like that. Well, the frigates were done back in March, and so you figure if you looked at their 6-week release schedule between June 3rd and when they were done, we could have gotten both the cruisers and the pirate frigates out by now, and if they had used the modified release schedule then. So the whole thing is, now when it's done, they'll ship it on the next release instead of, oh, it's done, well, too bad it's February 17th, hope that it sits around and waits till June.
Yeah, and, or even, it's past our deadline for the summer release, we got to push that until the winter, and we now have really nothing to focus on right now.
Now they don't have to. So right now, if they built a part right now, and like you said, and say it missed the June deadline by like a week or some shit like that, but it was still like, the June deadline was the last week of March or something. So now they've missed the June deadline. So the feature that they just designed and coded doesn't go into the game until either late summer or all the way in November, which is, between 4 and 8 months the fuck away, right? So now you've got to wait 4 and 8 months just to see what effect this thing that you have already spent all your time coding has on the game. Well, that won't be a thing anymore. Now when it's done, it'll go in the next release, and in the next 6-week release, they can look at if it's having problems or whatever, and they'll be able to adjust it or make changes to other parts of things in reaction to what they just put in is doing, instead of waiting 4 to 8 months between adjustments. Now we'll be able to do them every 6 weeks. That's
like why I'm really happy that they took the industry changes. Right, well, there's a lot of feedback, we got to sift through all that and sort out what really needs to be addressed with the concerns and issues raised. So we're going to push back the industry changes with research and all that to Creus, which is July 22nd. But everything else, including the Mordus Legion ships, I think the art redesigns are coming out on the 3rd. All the pirate faction changes, all that's coming out in June. You're just not getting the industry changes. We're going to push that to July, but it's no problem. We'll be good, guys. I like this new setup, and it's a smart move for a company that's as old as CCP and for as old of a game as Eve is. All right, so moving on from that, let's talk about some new ships coming out. We have the pirate faction changes, as well as the Phoenix rebalance, and we have 3 new ships that are pirate faction ships from Mordus Legion. What do you think about those?
Well, the Phoenix changes are kind of meh, because it was in an okay place. Like, you just had to believe, and people don't believe. A lot of people form opinions strictly off of what their calculator tells them without actually, functioning in the game and understanding that, like, people are like, oh yeah, carriers will speed tank a Phoenix. That'd be a thing if all carriers didn't anchor on a singular person in a fight. But since that's actually what happens, Phoenixes have always been a fairly viable spaceship to use. It's just that people have this misinformed opinion. Yeah, a carrier would speed tank your missiles if they moved. But if they moved, they would get spread out. And when they get spread out, they can't really rep each other because it turns out people are stupid. And if you don't give them a central point to just focus their attention on, they'll wander off like lemmings and die like assholes. So the entire concept of speed tanking missiles is only actually functional on paper. It doesn't actually work in fleet fights that way. There's a guy. We call that guy an anchor. Everybody's carrier keeps at 20 kilometers or whatever on that carrier. With the number of carriers we were using, even if they were to tell each other to orbit that carrier, they still wouldn't get very much speed because there's so many of them that they'd bump off each other, and it'd be generally hard to attain more than like maybe half speed or something like that. So the whole, oh, you'll speed tank a missile. Yeah, that's great. You would if you only play the game on paper or on EFT or whatever. But if you actually play the game and you've witnessed the fleet fights, you'd realize that speed tanking a missile is not really a thing. Like even the Darius fight that we just had recently, you look at it, everybody just jumped in and held perfectly still. The only people that were moving were the goons, and they were, scrambling over each other to get out of the way to get off the grid. And a lot of them still stood perfectly fucking still.
Was that more of an issue with the tie-dye, or was that just the user error?
No, it's just what people do. You have, in capital fights, you have a couple different center points. Like the super carriers will have a center point. Carriers will sometimes have a different center point, but they will just approach or keep at range on that person to keep themselves in rep range of all the other carriers. So nobody actually runs away or moves, or there's no, okay guys, they've got Phoenixes on the field, let's move the fleet here to the right so we can speed tank the missiles. That doesn't happen because 10 seconds into that, they'll start identifying the carriers that are drifting off the mast or not moving or have bumped out of range, and those would instead get so everybody just kind of like holds still and huddles up. It's like bunker warfare or whatever once you're in a super capital fight or a capital fight. There's not a lot of actual motion that goes on. So I don't think they necessarily needed to do this thing that they're trying to do, because a Phoenix could actually hit subcaps, as the mighty Lord Servant has proved. It's good to see him. He took the video down, which kind of sucks, but he actually had a video up of him pretty much getting up in the ass of a whole bunch of subcaps in a Phoenix. And he armor tanked it with some crappy armor tank fit, and it had a lot of tackle in the mids, but he was hitting and ripping cruisers and above, and now that's going to be harder with the Phoenix change. They'll do more damage to capitals that are moving, quote, speed tanking them, but they'll do less damage to subcaps because of the changes, which is kind of like bad. And it's really bad because the drone changes are coming up this summer, and that would give, it's going to give shield carriers and shield supers more room to exist in the game because they're adding some more mods, and it turns out shield carriers retain a lot of a tank while still doing more damage than an armor. So an armor carrier is good. Like an Archon's great, right? Thanatoses suck. Yeah, but so a shield carrier was just never able to really do some of the things, and they're a little bit more of a pain in the ass to fit as far as chimeras go. But after the changes, they'll be able to pump out a lot more damage while retaining their full tank. Be able to get some tracking, like you can double up on tracking and damage mods and get higher performing drones than you could before. But now, and the Phoenix would have been great in that environment when it has an actual thing that it can escalate with, but now that they've kind of ruined it, you're never going to want your Phoenix on the grid when there's subcaps around, because it's just not going to do shit all to them.
Okay, and what about the pirate faction changes? Because I'm digging the Blood Raider changes a lot. I love the Nosferatu.
I think they're going to be not only the Nos, the web range instead of strength, and then the oversized afterburning Sanchez frigates and cruisers. I don't know what the hell you're supposed to do with a really fast Nightmare besides fuck up your own guns. But I mean, the frigate and cruiser are pretty good. I like the idea, and I think they'll go a long way to being counters for Mordus Legion ships. Everybody's like, oh god, they're gonna run away. Yeah, they would run away if you were looking at them in a vacuum and not looking at any other ships that they'll be flying around that get adjusted at the same time. I think you're gonna find the pirate factions kind of do a lot to help each other. or to balance each other coming up shortly. That is if people fly them. Like if everybody just flies Mordus Legion ships, nobody picks up Sanchez or Blood ships, then not only are they stupid, but the Mordus Legion ships are going to run all over everything.
Yeah. And actually, speaking of the Mordus Legion ships, what do you think about them in terms of the stats? Because those just recently came out.
Yeah, I love them. I think it's great. I miss, as somebody who flew during the Nano Age, seeing fast spaceships makes me happy. I don't know that the ability to engage is there like it used to be in the Nano Age, but I still think it'll be fun to try. They're going to be good ships. I like them. I really like some of the fits that we've been looking at for them or whatever. The cruiser is amazing. Everybody's freaking out about the frigate. I could care less. The cruiser can fling hams way far. Well, not way far, but far for hams anyway. You get like 30, 35 kilometer hams out of it. No big deal. It's just pretty impressive for a ham missile.
Yeah.
Not that it'll hit the broadside of a barn, but whatever. There's some space there for doing creative things on a really fast platform.
I've been seeing a lot of excitement over them, not just on the stats, but on the look and the art design. I'm in love with the frigate and the cruiser looks. I'm not a huge fan of the battleship initially. It's probably going to come eventually, but it looks more of a carrier than a battleship.
Yeah. I'm super disappointed. The art department showed 8 missile launchers on the art, and then it comes out that it's only got 7, which kind of sucks. Sick of that. Just give us 8. Why can't we just have one ship that has 8 launchers? Can you do that?
I think that would be a little overpowered.
Not rare. No, it wouldn't be fine. Tell me more about overpowered when we put battleship-sized guns on a battlecruiser ship, and then we call that okay. But we can't have 8 missile launchers on one ship. Kiss my ass.
And speaking of art designs and looks, the Crow and Condor line of ships are getting a complete redesign. The Moa is getting a complete new look. And
the ugliest ship in Eve.
I enjoy the Moa look as it currently is. I'm perfectly okay
really
with
enjoy it now.
I like the new redesign, but I kind of want the Moa to stay where it is, and the Eagle and the higher than tier 1 to get the redesign. And that's what I want with the Crow and Condor. Just because I like the old looks and I want them to keep those in place. Just give the Tech 2 and Tech 3 version or whatever of these redesigned models to just have a nicer
looking
looking
the guy that did the art originally for CCP on Caldari is the illegitimate love child of fucking Picasso. I hate almost every ship design from the original Caldari lineup. They're like, I mean, okay, I understand the space and symmetry isn't really necessarily a thing, but holy shit, we're just going to put an extruded dingus over here, we're going to put one of these whatchamacallits up here, we'll twist this shit down here. What do you mean the ship doesn't look like any? Yeah, of course it doesn't look like anything. It looks like I don't even know what the fuck it looks like. Just a vomit, an engineering vomit is the best description for the Moa. The Osprey, that is the ugliest fucking thing in the whole world. Most of their frigate lineup, you're like, what the fuck kind of drugs were you people on when you made this?
And what do you think about the Typhoon change? Because I'm really thinking it's a model redesign.
I saw a picture of it. I want to see it in an actual function in the game so I can make a final verdict. It went from a round wire trash can to a square IKEA wastebasket, and I'm kind of a fan.
And also announced at Fanfest, which was kind of interesting, was the CSM 9 results. The elections came in. What do you think of CSM 9 compared to CSM 8? You didn't vote?
I absolutely did not vote. Not one single person got any of my votes.
Not even Jay Silva, who is in your own alliance.
Yep, I am aware of that. I don't believe in the process anymore. This year proved to me that the CSM will use its power to simply remove a threat in game that they see to their alliance, and the voting block power of one group assured that they had enough people backing their voice on one side that some of the changes were just ridiculous. It was basically like, hey, our enemies use this and we don't like it, so we're going to get it nerfed. Not that it's overpowered or broken or anything else like that, because it's okay that we anchor up on one dude and let him drive us around the fucking field, and we don't have to drive our own spaceships or anything like that. But one guy firing everybody's guns, that's suddenly across the fucking line. I mean, if you were honest about it, one guy firing your guns is just as wrong as one guy driving everybody's spaceship. So fleet anchoring should go just as much as drone assign could go, but that wasn't actually brought up because that wasn't the goal. The goal of the CSM was not to bring balance to the game, the goal of the CSM in that case was to do damage to its enemy in game, and it used 4 or 5 of the seats to do it, plus just about every single member of the CSM that plays for a 0/0 block violated the NDA. So, like, no big deal.
Explain that part, because that's a pretty serious thing to accuse.
Every single 0/0 block knew the drone nerf was coming before CCP announced it, because the CSM members of their alliances knew that the drone nerf was coming, because they had been told. Like, that's an actual thing. Like, they all, like, everybody's like, wait for this fucking change to come. And it took me a little while to figure out what the fuck they were talking about, but now, in hindsight, it's pretty easy to see. They just were made well aware of the changes. Like, if I could find it in print anywhere for you, I would go ahead and publish that on every fucking thing in the world. But the CSM is currently just a joke. It's just it's a way that one group of players is getting over on another group of players in the game, and I don't think it's right or anything like that. So, like Russell Brand says, I'm just not going to vote. Fuck it.
Okay. That's, it's your choice, so I'm not going to accuse you or hound you on that.
Yeah.
I am happy to see a couple of people who I have personal dealings with, CSM members, get reelected, like Aliars. She does a really good job with new player stuff, and she likes to focus on the new player experience. And speaking of the new player experience, CCP Rise, aka Killed 2, did a presentation on CCP's challenges in improving the new player experiences and how they want to make things better. And I was hoping, did you actually get a chance to see that presentation or hear anything about it?
I kind of skimmed through it, because I gotta tell you, after 7 years of watching them try and fix the new player experience and having it flop just about every time, it's really hard to get excited when they even bother talking about it, right? Because I don't, right, this sounds like an asshole, but I tell people not to play EVE, right? Like, that's an actual thing. I tell people not to play because it's so time intensive. And so it eats up so much of your time, and it's really hard for a newer player to get into, and there's just not going to be any real way to fix that, right? Like, there's nothing you can do that won't make the rest of the game worse to make it easier and better for new players. It's just simply physically not possible. Part of the thing that made me play EVE was the fact that after I finished the tutorial way back when, it just ended. And it had me running all over the place. I had to go, 12 jumps to go pick a thing up. And it ended. And there was no direction to tell me where to go, who to talk to, or anything. I was fucking lost. I didn't even know where all the shit that I had collected from the first 3 missions I had left it. I had no idea how to work any of the interface stuff like that at all. And so that was I was just lost. I opened up the map, and all those little fucking dots were the first thing I saw. I was like, holy shit. No, I'm totally fucked. But that was what was cool to me about the game. And I just don't see how you can make that better for new players. Like, EVE is a big game. Like, so trying to get it to a point where it's friendly for new players in a game this complex is, I believe, an effort in futility. So God love them for what they're trying to do, but I just don't think they're ever going to get it anywhere where a new player will grab EVE, pick it up, and have an easy time understanding what's going on in their world that they've just stepped into.
Well, I think the one thing that they kind of talked about, and you did mention it when you were mentioning how you first got into the game, it's something I went through as well, and I've had reiterated to me several times. They're looking at how people come to the game and they do the tutorial mission, and they're constantly given a goal or a task, and they don't come up with a goal or a task on their own. Which any long-term player goes, I have created this goal or task on my own. That's how all the wars start. That's how all the alliances get formed. That's how your corporations get formed in the game. They're like, you want to make this, you want to do X, and you will figure out how to get to that goal. Whereas in the tutorial system, it gives you the goals and it gives you a step-by-step guide on how to get there. And then when that tutorial ends, players don't know what else to fucking do. And I think that's a problem, and they're kind of sorting out how they can make it so the player can, in the middle of the tutorial, go, well, I have a goal now, and I'm just going to go for it. And that's the one nice thing I like about EVE is you don't even have to do the tutorial just to get through the game. Any other game, you have to go through the starter zone. EVE has no starter zone in the sense that I can go from the starting area of a new player to, Brothers of Tanger space or into PL space in the matter of 10 minutes. Whereas in, a game like World of Warcraft, WildStar, Elder Scrolls Online, you have to do the tutorial section and you can't progress any further. And I like how I want CCP to focus on doing more of that and making it so I, as a new player, or any new player, can go, I want to go do whatever I want, and I can do it anytime I want. And you don't have these archaic, limited paths you have to follow just to get to that point. But I mean, it's an issue because the new players are really hard to get that message across to at times. I mean, we've seen it with a lot of World of Warcraft imports.
I think, I actually think rather than in the goal vein that you're talking about, like everything you do in the new player experience in your tutorial is in your noob shit, right? You have zero idea. Like, you have any idea how many spaceships are in fucking Eve? And then
there's a lot.
Guy, right? So when he gets done, his experience is, wow, look what I can do in my Bantam. Not even my Bantam, in my Valator or whatever. Like he didn't get any large ship experience in any way, shape, or form. And it just seems odd that in a game that is in the set, like, fucking thousands of years in the future, that you can't have a simulator to show it. Like, like if you get a new player or whatever and you want to run him through some stuff and you want to, especially like the gunnery mechanics, like there's no better way to understand the gunnery mechanics than to learn them. Because when someone says, here's the formula for the gunnery mechanics, and they throw this fucking physics equation in front of your fucking face, and you're like, what the literal shit is this? This is a game. I didn't want to retake fucking high school trigonometry and shit. Let's play a game. So you put them in a ship, and you show them, okay, this is how a frigate tracks. This is how a cruiser tracks. This may be how a battle cruiser tracks. And then you show them directly. This is like tanking, shield tanking. This is armor tanking. Give them a fucking clue so that you don't have some asshole like the one that I killed who's in a dual tanked Sin. Like, hey, I'm gonna, I got shield boosters and armor represented. How can that mean, how could that not be a good thing? Like, you need to show players what their options are for them to have a goal. These are what recons can do. Like, you could probably rewrite the NPE to give them a brief look at each ship class, just as a simulation, and they would be so much better off than what the fuck they're doing now.
Yeah, I don't think doing tutorial missions really help out, because it just teaches you how to quest. And I think in 2014, anyone who's playing an MMO probably already knows how to play a quest, or how to do a quest in a video game. You don't need to do that. I think the complex stuff that Eve brings, or stuff like transversal velocity, I had no idea how to do any of that shit until a couple months ago. I've been playing the game since like 2009 off and on, because I ignored that portion of it. There was nothing teaching me that when I first played, and I had to learn it from another player. So either put all the work in the player's hands to teach them, like with tutorial videos, or updating the Eve wiki and make those easily accessible to the new player, or just get rid of or include something in the tutorial system, like you said, like a simulator mode where, hey, we're going to throw you this ship in this game mode, or this specific instance where you can't take it anywhere else in the game, just in this specific instance, and we're going to teach you how to shoot things.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even need to be like it can just be like a like a how Titanfall does the combat simulator when you first start out or whatever. Just do that. Just like, here's you live in a giant pod full of ooze. They can't visually project a nice little image in there to simulate some shit for you. Like, this is what it'll be like flying a hack. This is a recon. This is a bomber. These are its functions. This is how a battleship operates. And just do subcaps. They'll see enough cap ships later on in life. Trust me. Like, just give them an overview of the different kinds of ships that they'll be seeing and what their functions are.
Yeah, that's why I think stuff like either user-made videos that CCP like elevates to, hey, we're gonna take this idea or everything you've done, we're just gonna put our brand on it, as a company, or hey, we're gonna work with you and we're gonna include it into our tutorial system or our new player, area where when a new player logs on, they get like, hey, if you want to learn how to do this, this is where you find information on it.
Sure, yeah, anything like that. Like,
because right now, I kind of joke, the Eve website is really bad for any new player. They come and they can see that they can play the game. There's no information on how to play the game. Finding the Wikipedia on the Eve website is nigh on impossible for a new player. Like, we as Eve players know where to go, right? Because we just have to type in Evelopedia and Google does the work for us. As a new player, you don't have any of that information.
Yep.
And that's probably one of the biggest problems with the new player experience right now, is a lot of the information is either hidden or CCP's not thinking ahead of, they need to know this a lot earlier than we're giving them credit for. because you should be treating your new players as infants rather than functioning teenagers.
Yeah, and I mean not only that, but like, yeah, just give them an idea. Like, this is this kind of ship. These are its weapon systems. These are its generally fitted tank systems. These are how it operates, and these are the skills you'll need to train to do that type of thing. And that way, like, that whole little fucking thing they did where you can open up and pull up each ship and look.
The ISIS is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be, what would be make it even more amazing for a new player is if he could then click on and, like, a test drive button or some shit like that, anything like that, to give them an idea of how the ship functions, what its functions are, what its primary, jobs are in EVE, and just, what kind of skills. That way they don't waste the first 60 to 90 days of their game time training shit that they'll never need. Never need. They're like, hey, I trained Caldari. Yep, I got armor and lasers, and I'm good, and I can fly a Raven. And you're like, what? That's because there was nothing to show them anything else. So they just kind of like stumbled along like fucking Ray Charles and figured it out as they could. And it's stupid. It's really dumb.
Yeah, that's the one thing I like we mentioned War Thunder earlier. That's the one thing I really like is you can test fly all of your planes that you buy or before you use them.
Before you even purchase them, you can do
it.
You can just, like, I mean, I don't understand how 7 years of trying in a game with, 300 or 400 spaceships in, they haven't just come up with this idea on how to motivate new players to have a goal by just letting them see the ships in action. Because the only way they can see them in action now is finding, like you said, people's Twitch streams and finding people's YouTube videos on storage. And to be honest, those are kind of dumb sometimes and misleading because the guy doesn't tell you that he's running, 3 scouts and 2 booster alts. And so you're wondering how this guy's getting all these sweet ass fights, and you fit up a ship kind of like he might have it fit up, and you go out and you get in your $2.3 billion fit, and you can't figure out why it didn't work because the guy wasn't forthcoming in the fact that he's not solo. He's using 5 people to do what he's doing. Like, yeah. I think that's super important, and think until they get it, they're just going to keep redoing the new player experience every year like idiots. Like, hey, we adjusted the new player experience. God knows why it's not working. Oh.
That's why I said, like, it'd be great if they could either utilize people's YouTube channels. Like, hey, Scott Manley did this really good tutorial system. It's, a couple hours long, but it's going to help you a lot longer than a poorly written wiki
we have
entry
ever made in a decade.
Yeah. And I think that's really what they should be going towards. So kind of moving off that topic for now. Also at FanFest, they've talked about the EVE Monument. And there was actually a bit of controversy right after FanFest ended in which vandalism had already taken place, in which Zenuria, who I know you have opinions on, I'm going to kind of ask you to mute those opinions for a second, had his name scratched off by someone who actually went to FanFest, and CCP were really upset by this, and they eventually found out who it was, and they perma-banned a couple people and gave like temporary bans to a few other guys, like up to like 30 or 60 days. What's your take? Because I know I think you were part of the crowd that didn't like the Monument's idea, along with like Darius Johnson and stuff, or were you in the side of, it's a good monument, I like it, but it's messed up that someone vandalized it?
Fuck them, my name's not on it.
Oh yeah, that's right, your name wasn't on it, right? Garth
I don't know if it's on it or not, but they're like, oh, our name finder's in beta. It doesn't work. Well, how fucking hard is a name finder to code? Like, if you can't code a fucking name finder, then I think you have an issue. And like, I filed a petition, and they're like, well, obviously your name's on there because the names were all pulled directly from our database, and it's our name finder that's the problem. You can't even code a name finder, and you're making video games.
Yeah. So for people who are listening, Grath Telkin's name isn't in the Monument name finder. It's Garth Telkin, something like that. And we gave you a fair bit of chastising over that. But anyway, yeah, I found it interesting because a lot of people didn't like the idea of the monument. Some goons had put up a sticker on it, and it kind of caused a little bit of people on Reddit and stuff to get a little upset. And then it's a sticker, so it's whatever. It's it comes off. It's no problem. Whatever. It's, it leaves a sticky residue. That's about it. But someone actually went in and like flat out scratched out Zenuria's name, or tried to scratch his name out, and I found that to be pretty.
That's pretty petty. That's punk shit.
That's punk, like you said. That's punk shit, and it's really petty. And I don't think CCP were in the wrong to permaban those people responsible. And also announced at FanFest were some more Eve comics, which I know you're a big comic fan. What do you think of the True Stories comic series?
I mean, they were like, I only read like 2 of them, and I mean they were kind of cool. I definitely like the art. Like I'm a kind of a comic art nerd, and there's a lot of New Age comics that I don't really like the way the guys are being drawn and stuff. So I like the way they did the art. I like that they used our actual stories. I just wish they had. I don't feel like there was very much action in them. I feel like it was kind of. I don't know. I'm curious to see where they take it from here. Like they have an opportunity. They have tons of stories that they could tell, and if they want, I don't think they should do TV, and I don't think they should do a movie, because I just don't think it'll translate right.
Yeah. They announced a couple more comics, like the True Story comics are going to continue to expand. They also announced the Eve Valkyrie backstory with the lore is going to be made into a comic with Dark Horse.
Yeah. How do you put Fofo into a movie and keep a straight face for it? Like how are you gonna? You can't really. Right?
There's a couple names who are like you hear them in a TV series or a movie, and it's not going to work well.
Right. The Big Red Boat. There's a name for your star character. Like you can't really Admiral Big Red Boat. No, I mean you can't even really like name. So I don't think it's really going to translate that great. I think the names that they allowed us to pick kind of prevent it.
And then they also announced some really cool thing, which I'm really excited for. On top of the comics, was ship models, because I really like ship models.
Oh yeah, the Nix. Holy Christ! I want to get that thing and figure if I can mount. I have like drones, quadcopters, and stuff like that. I want to see if I can
put the propellers on.
Yeah, I want to see if I can put the whole motor. Yeah, just make it fly. I want to see if I can get the quadcopter mounted under it or on it.
Yeah, so that's they're doing two lines of models. One's going to be I think 11 inches or so, or 18 inches, and the Nix, which are like the all the carriers and above, or all the capitals and above, are going to be 28 inches long, which is about
enormous,
half the size of a human body.
It's pretty big. Well, for a short human, but yeah, I mean it's pretty big. Like they did a nice side by side model, and it was like down to like the midsection of the upper body. Which is pretty fucking big for a model. The size of a skateboard, right? Like that, it's like skateboard length. That's pretty big for a model.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. As soon as I saw that, I was like, "That's gonna cost so much money because that's gonna be like $300-$400."
I don't know what I'll do with it when I get it, but I'm probably gonna get it. Like I didn't get any of the other ones they put out so far because I didn't really that interested in them or whatever. But I'm 100% gonna get that Nix. That was my first super carrier anyway. It was a Nix. Lived in a wormhole for 90 days to afford that stupid thing.
Yeah, and I do like how they're doing the smaller ships at a smaller scale with a different manufacturer, and then they're doing like the big ones with a second manufacturer. I think that's going to be really cool because then if you're like an avid collector, some sort of super nerd who wants to like make your own Eve home movies in the old fashion of using models to do your space scenes, you'd have all these different Eve models and then the giant ass Nix just sitting in your garage. I think that'd be hilarious.
It would be amazing. Like I don't know.
I think it would be amazing if you could get that drone motor to work on a Nix and have it fly. That'd be pretty funny.
It would be great. It would be I don't know. I can't even fly the fucking drone without crashing it into everything in the goddamn world. I haven't found a place big enough around here to really open it up. And but it's worrisome that my drone has a high def camera on it, and nobody thought that was a bad idea to just sell to the public. Yeah, great.
Yeah. All right, Grath, thank you for stopping by. Hopefully we have some more articles coming out of you. You know, the article where you talked about PL's finances is still in the works, I hope.
Yeah, that's actually going to come. Fowl was almost done it when we lost 30 Titans, so he has now changed the scope of it. He had like literally one graph left to do when the B-Dash fight happened. Yeah, well, he was going to put it all together, but now instead he's going to. We're pretty much done doing the Titans now. Everything's just about fully replaced. I think we have like 2 left to do or 3 left to do or something like that. So anyway, once it's all done, he's going to do last year's massive finances and then the effort that was put out this year to replace everything that was lost at the end of the year or at the beginning of the year. So it'll be like a year and a half in the life of the PL wallet.
It was pretty funny because someone mentioned it the other night. PL does a thing around Christmas, I think, or like every now and then, called a screenshot trivia, which is basically you see a movie screenshot. And Fal had a lot of like really cool prizes this past year, from what I remember. And
Yeah.
the winners didn't get paid out because of BTAC-R.
Yeah.
And the joke Jeff made, and I think Fallen or someone else made, was that man, Fred City has ruined Christmas for everyone in PL because of all the Titans being lost and just ruining all their
Right.
gifts.
It's good. Screenshot Trivia is a great game. He shows you this like little 1 inch by 1 inch square of a picture of something else of a movie. It's just one screen of a movie or whatever, and you have to pick what movie it is. And the prizes range anywhere from faction fit carriers to faction battleships and stuff like that. Fal's pretty rich, so he just gives out whatever.
All right, and thank you for stopping by, Grath. And to catch up on that article once it's out, you can always visit thematani.com.